dong ke kamera, tekesin dong.
Yo.
Ya, thank you.
Bisa tolong uncheck yang tadi kan, waiting room kan?
Siap.
Ntar lo nggak keganggu kan kalau suara lo di depan kedengeran?
Kedengeran dikit gak masalah. Tenang aja.
Gue sesensitif itu kemarin kan kayak.
Ya karena lu kan the only one speaking kan, jadi kayak oke, enable waiting roomnya aku uncheck.
Wait.
Tolong spotlight baru ya Bang.
Panik.
Lebay lo. Karena di office ya?
Iya. Bisa ya, stop dulu.
Makin orang-orang kan?
Waiting roomnya udah dimatiin.
Hello everyone and welcome back to EdAmerica. My name is James, one of the e-guides here at EdAmerica, and we welcome audience members joining us online. We hope that you're doing well and staying safe. EdAmerica is the United States Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn more about the United States. In this episode, we will be having understanding the importance of the TOEFL, IBT, GRE, and GMAT before applying for a master's degree in the United States. But before we begin, let's break the ice with a little game. I have here a question for everyone. What does TOEFL stand for? Is it Test on English for Language, Teaching of English as a Foreign Language, Teaching of English for Learning, or Test of English as a Foreign Language? Stay tuned until the end of this program because we'll be giving a live shout out to whoever can answer correctly on our social medias. I'd also like to let everyone know that as continuation of EdAmerica's 10th anniversary celebration and Women's History Month in March, we are holding an activity along with several giveaways. Those giveaways are 10 tablets for 10 lucky people, so if you're interested in learning more, stay until the end of this program. Other than that, don't forget to take a selfie and tag EdAmerica's Instagram account. Now, without further ado, let me introduce everyone to our moderator and speaker for today, Kak Vina Alatas, EdAmerica's very own Education USA advisor. Kak Vina, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, James. Hello, everyone. Welcome to EdAmerica TV. My name is Vina. I'm one of the advisors for EducationUSA based in EdAmerica. If this is your first time, welcome. If this is not your first time, welcome back. Hopefully you were here yesterday when I gave the presentation about statement of purpose. I'm very excited about the event tonight, but I would like to shout out to everyone who is watching this session from so many different platforms because as you may already know, we are not only here in Zoom, but we are basically on every social media platform that you can think of. So we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are live on Instagram, we are also live on YouTube. But I'm currently with the whole EdAmerica team here in Zoom, and there are a few people of you are also here. Seems like people keep coming in. So if you want to join the crowd, feel free to do that. We are here in Zoom, and it's very fun because we are going to interact during the presentation. But wherever you guys are watching this from, feel free to stay there. If you have any question or comment, please do that on the wherever you guys are watching this from, okay? Because we have our amazing team basically going to make sure that all of your questions and comments will be read by us after the presentation. So before we begin the presentation, but basically what we're going to have tonight, Santika and I will try our best to just give a just not too long of a presentation because we want to basically interact with you and discuss with you more on this standardized test because we receive a lot of questions about it. I'm pretty sure you guys are also probably already have some questions about this standardized test. So we're going to try our best to keep the presentation very brief, but please also pay attention because all of this information will be very informative for you. Okay, so before we start, like usual, I would like to give a short introduction about Education USA, just in case this is your first time. And I'm gonna let Santika, since Santika is in America, to basically help me with the share screen. There you go. Thank you so much. All right, so what is Education USA? We are part of the U.S. Department of State Network, or here in Indonesia, we call it Kementerian Luar Negerinya Amerika Serikat. We have over 400 international student advising centers in more than 170 countries. So as you can see, we are basically all over the world. And what we do as advisors is to help you. We are here to help you, assist you every step of the way for higher education in the US, such as bachelor's, master's, or PhD. Or in Indonesia, we call it S1, S2, dan S3. And all of our services are, of course, free of charge. If this is your first time, probably you're thinking, is it real? And yes, I can assure you that it's true that all of our services are free of charge. Can we go to the next slide, please? So in Indonesia, not only in America, where Santika is currently at, I'm going to call her up very soon, but we have a total of 8 centers with 10 advisors. So there are 2 in Jakarta, 1 at the U.S. Embassy. Maybe you've been there before and meet with one of the advisors there, David or Iqbal. Or we also have one in America, of course, in Pacific Place, where Santika and I are based at. And then we also have 2 in Surabaya. We have 1 in Medan. We have 1 in Malang, Makassar, and Banda Aceh. So if there is no Education USA center where you live, you don't have to worry because basically we cover the whole country. So you can reach out to the nearest center. But now that you are being exposed by Education USA at America, feel free to reach out to us as well here in Ad America. So we provide you with 5 steps. I'm going to go real quick here. So we start with step 1, that is research your options. So if you know that you want to study in the US, but you don't know where to start, feel free to reach out to us and then we'll have a chat. Basically, I will answer some of your basic questions if you have. And then once you pretty much good to go that you know that you're going to study in the US, we can move on to step 2, which is finance your studies. It's equally important because there are definitely a number of options if you want to study master's or PhD in the US. So we are going to take a look at that. And then once we also figure that out, we can move on to step 3, which is completing your application. So basically the events last night, when I gave a presentation about essay and then what we're going to have tonight, it's part of step 3. Completing your application. So not only we can take a look at your essay or give you feedback on your resume, but we can definitely also take a look together at some of your options for standardized tests. So that's basically what we're going to talk about tonight. All right. And then once you basically have all the documents, you're going to submit those. You're going to give some time to wait, and it's very exciting this time around, starting in March, April, all the way until probably like in June. That's when Santika and I are starting to receive emails from you guys or WhatsApp from our advisees whom we worked together for the past 6 months to a year before with their application, and they share the good news that they got accepted. So I think today total we have about like more than 20 people already let us know that they already got accepted, and then the number will count as time goes on until I think probably like in May or June. So it's very exciting. And then what happens to those people would be we can move to step 4, that is applying for your student visa. So we're not going to apply the visa for you, but we're going to guide you on that. And then last but not least, we have step 5, which is prepare for your departure. We'll have to see the situation. Probably we're going to have one this year, but please stay tuned. So basically in the PDO or pre-departure orientation is basically for those who are about to depart to the US this year, sometimes in August or September, and then we give them a presentation. We give you a presentation about all the information that you need to know before you depart to the US, such as how to open a bank account, how to maintain your student visa, the first few things that you need to do when you get to the US, how to find housing, what is the classroom experience looks like. But then, of course, this is open for everyone, okay? So meet with us. Again, my name is Tina. I'll have my colleague Santika very soon joining us. So we have our advising hours basically open every day, digital via Zoom. So we start from 1 until 9 p.m. And then all of all of our advising sessions will be via Zoom. So I leave you the Zoom ID here, and then later on we can also share with you the Zoom link so you can save it. And then next time you want to see one of us between 1 until 9 p.m., you can just like click it. Okay. Oh, and by the way, the advising system is first come, first serve. So basically, you don't have to make an appointment as in, hey, Fida, can I see you on, I don't know, Wednesday at 7? Well, as long as there is no advising session going on at the time, I will let you in from the waiting room. Okay, if there is an advising session going on, I will send you a quick chat and then letting you know, hey, I'm currently on a session, feel free to wait. Okay. Or you can email us first if you don't feel like, just jump into Zoom and then talk to one of us. You can email us to our email center, jakarta.etamerica@educationusa.org. Feel free to, I don't know, you can introduce yourself, or maybe if you have a quick question, and then we're definitely going to get back to you on that. And so basically, I believe tonight is the last event for the month of March. I look forward to seeing you guys again in April. So on April 7th, I'm going to give a presentation on building strong CVs, resumes, and letters of recommendation. So we're going to take a look at that. This is part of our monthly event. So if you missed the one that I just had a couple of weeks ago, you can definitely join this one, or maybe you feel like you want to join again, or maybe you can share it with your friends. So feel free to do that. Again, this is part of our monthly event. And after that, I believe the day after that, on April the 8th, I'm going to give a presentation again, similar to what I just gave last night. So, and we actually learned that there are a number of people who told us that they actually watched the statement of purpose essay, the statement of purpose session more than once. So if you attended one last night and then you actually want to join again next month, feel free to do that, because although I use the same presentation slides, but the way I present it is always different, more or less, because I always learn something new when it comes to statement of purpose. Okay, so that's going to be on April 8th at 6:30. And then I want to make this event as a kind of like a highlight for the month of April, because this is the first time that Santika and I are going to try having this session. Basically, this is kind of like a follow-up from the statement of purpose essay that we're going to have that Thursday, but then on the following Saturday at 1:30 p.m., we're going to basically just fully discuss everything about essays. I'm not going to share with you any presentation slides. I just want to talk. So what makes this event, I think, what makes it going to be interesting is because Santika and we are going to invite a number of our advisees that we are currently working together to basically hear from them their experience doing sessions with Santika and myself. So we're going to hear from them their experience so far writing an essay, their struggle and everything. So I really hope you can join this. I'm very excited. I really look forward to this session so much. So it's going to be on April 10th on a Saturday. It's kind of like rare for us to create an event on a Saturday at 1:30, but I really hope you can join us for this event. All right. And you can already register for 3 of these events through our website. So you can go to atamerica.or.id/educationusa and then just scroll all the way down, and then you're going to see this event. All right, so we are going to talk about everything. Hopefully after this event tonight, you're understanding better the importance of TOEFL iBT. And we're going to also take a look at some of the other standardized tests like IELTS, and we have like some new standardized tests like PTE and Duolingo. And then we're going to also we're going to take a lot of your questions, so please keep them coming. This is also very exciting because it is, I believe, the first time Santika and I are going to basically do the presentation together. So without further ado, I would like to basically just call up Santika, and then the first part of the essays, or basically the first part of the presentation slide will be presented by Santika, and then I'm going to take over at the end to just kind of like not wrap things up, but give you some tips and some other informations that I believe will be very informative for you guys. And then we're going to start the discussion together. Hi, Santika. How are you doing?
Hi, Pina. Thank you so much for the introduction and briefing us through, our events for next month. I think we are going to have, a lot of good time as well next month. And today, like what you said, this is like our first time, splitting our presentation, and it's going to be interesting, in my opinion. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'll give it back to you when I'm done with mine. Okay. All right,
Got it. Thank you.
everyone. Thank you so much for coming in on your Friday evening for this presentation. It means a lot for Fina and me, and we hope that you will learn a lot today, because this is basically standardized tests that you will need when you want to study to the United States. And yesterday, last night's event, we received a lot of questions regarding standardized tests. So we think the time is just very right and supportive. So here we are. Okay, understanding the importance of TOEFL iBT, GRE, and GMAT. And as a bonus, I also add some others, like what Pina said. It's DET and PTE. Okay. So here we go. There we go. So these are common standardized tests that we are going to see a lot when you are exploring your options in U.S. universities. Okay, you can see here the type or the name of the standardized test on the left side, and then what it is used for, or what kind of level of study that will accept that. And on the right, you will see the official website. That's where you need to go for all of the information. Not saying that you cannot find third-party sources or other website than this on the right side that I listed here. But if you're going to find crucial information, like how much it costs, what kind of questions, and how many sections, how long is the duration, all of that needs to come from the official source or official website that I list here, because sometimes they make changes that will not be updated on third-party sources. Okay, so let's go through this real quick here, because we have a lot of things to cover. SAT and ACT, basically it's for people who are going to apply for undergrad or S1, we call it in Indonesia. And SAT is from collegeboard.org, ACT is act.org. It's pretty straightforward. And in here, it's not only English, it's also, they also test you on other subjects. So like SAT, they do have subject tests, and ACT, it already has science in it, so you don't need to add additional tests like the SAT. Those are the main difference. If you are going to ask me what are the difference between SAT and ACT, to me, those are the biggest difference. You don't have to get additional science or subject tests for the ACT, but you do for the SAT. Okay, and moving on for the graduate schools, and later on we will talk about the English one down there, the big chunk. Okay, the GMAT and GRE. So these two are for graduate schools. They are specifically for. So sorry. GMAT is specifically for business majors. So if you are going to take MBA or very business oriented programs, you need, they kind of prefer GMAT in a way. It will be always accepted in business schools, but most schools these days also give you alternatives of submitting GRE for the business schools, but you have to check again to the university website. Okay. So GMAT is from MBA.com. If you go to the website there, all of the information is there. For GRE, it's from ets.org. It's the same creator or host with the TOEFL iBT. And TOEFL iBT is very common, so I'm sure you guys have heard of it. So GRE and TOEFL iBT both are from ets.org. You just need to go to that website and then choose GRE or TOEFL iBT, because they have separate the category there. Okay, and the difference here is basically for GRE, it's kind of for all other majors or programs, or sometimes even business schools accept it, but for GMAT it's only business majors. Okay, for TOEFL iBT and the rest down there, IELTS Academic, DET, and PTE, all of them are English proficiency tests. Okay, so they only test you in English. They don't test you on quant or anything like in the GMAT and GRE, because GMAT and GRE will have quant section, and they kind of like have different style, if I must say. Okay, so you need to check which one you need. You don't have to take all of this. So for example, for SAT or ACT, you only need one. And for GMAT and GRE, you also kind of like need one only, unless you are applying to maybe different majors that ask for different things. But in that case, you can also stick to GRE if the business school asks for GRE. For TOEFL, IELTS, academic, DET, and PTE, again, you only need one basically. But make sure that if you are going to apply to many universities, you find the one that is going to be accepted to all of that university you want to apply to. Okay? So TOEFL IBT, IELTS, DET, and PTE, they're coming from different creators. TOEFL IBT is again from ETS, and IELTS is from British Council Foundation.id. The .id is already localized to Indonesian website and Bahasa Indonesia. So if you're in Indonesia, you need to go to that one because you can, opt for Bahasa Indonesia if you want to understand the test better in our language, in your native language. For DET, it's from Duolingo. If you know, Duolingo is an app where you can learn a lot of different languages, not only English. And lately, they make English tests, a standardized test as well, that you can use to apply to universities as well. Okay. And PTE is from Pearson. So the website is pearsonpte.com. The funny thing when I research on this is actually they have different types of PTE, and PTE-A is just for academic. So they have home, and they have the if I'm not mistaken, UKVI. I don't know how to read that in a word or the abbreviation, but they have different purpose. And the only one that's you able to use for academic purpose is the PTE-A only. The rest is not for academic purpose at all. Okay. And for DET, it's only one type. For IELTS, why I add academic there? Because they also have another type of IELTS. It's called something IELTS General something in the full name. But yeah, you are only going to need IELTS academic if you are going to use it for applying to US universities. Okay. TOEFL IBT also have different types, but what you are going to use for US universities is also IBT. So it's really specific, and you need to know which test you are going for. Okay, don't mistaken it for another one. All right, so this is the overview. This is the duration, price, and validity, because I find these are important for you to maybe start looking on which one you want to explore first. Fina and I will never answer you with kind of like decide for you when you come to us with a question. Hey, Fina or Santika, which one is better? Is GRE better than GMAT, or GMAT is easier than GRE? We will tell you to kind of like explore first and see which one you really need. So, for example, if you don't need GMAT, you're not going to business school, you won't need it, right? So yeah, those kind of things. We will not give you like a decision for you to make. The decision is for you to make, and we are here to give you the information so that you can explore. So SAT and ACT are around 3 hours or 4 hours with writing. And the price, as you can see, is 103 or 118 for SAT. That's without writing and with writing. So with writing will be more expensive than the non-writing one. And just to be safe, you will want to take the one with the writing, because it will never go wrong if you have the full package of the standardized test instead of without the writing one. What are the chances that the university do not need your writing skills or assessment when you are an international student? Okay, and the validity is 5 years. So one test result will be valid for 5 years. You can use that for 5 years. But of course, most Indonesians and most international students take them kind of like near the end of their high school years. So I doubt you will need all 5 years. Okay. GMAT and GRE also 5 years as in the validity. And then the price is GMAT is more expensive. It's 250 per test, 250 US dollar, and GRE is $205, the same price as TOEFL iBT. In terms of duration, GMAT will be shorter. It's about 3 hours, and GRE will be about 4 hours. For TOEFL iBT, it's around 3 hours. It used to be longer, and I will explain later in the next slide. And the price is the same as GRE, as you can see, but the validity is going to be different because I think all of the English proficiency tests, as you can see here, only valid for 2 years. I think they make this because they have a lot of reasons. One of the thing is because your English skill will be, improving, and so if it's valid for a long time, then it's not going to be as accurate as if it's like shorter validity period. Okay, so the IELTS will be 2.9 million Indonesian rupiah. It's already in Indonesian rupiah because, like what I said, it has been localized to the British Council Foundation.id website. It's not going to be in the US dollar anymore. And the duration is less than 3 hours, 2 hours 45 minutes, but this excludes the speaking part because it's going to be in person. And I'm going to show you the difference later. So stay tuned. And for DET, this one is the fastest English proficiency test that I have ever seen. It's only 1 hour, or like at least if you go past 1 hour, it's not because of the test, because the test itself is only 4 to 5 minutes. That's for the graded part. And the non-graded part is just kind of like interview, and it's about 10 minutes. So if you add all of that, it's only 55 minutes. And they put 1 hour on their website because of the setup. You probably need about 5 minutes at least to set up the whole thing because it's only online based. It's only online based. So you cannot take this in any center in Indonesia. So for PTAA, it's going to be 3 hours, and the price is 185 US dollar. It's cheaper than TOEFL and GRE, but I'm going to show you why it's not that easy to take the PTEA in Indonesia. Okay, I hope this sums up the overview. So we are going for the DET and PTEA first because the TOEFL and the IELTS is going to take a bit longer. Okay, so they are what I say as alternatives to English proficiency tests because TOEFL, IBT, and IELTS are very common in Indonesia, but the drawback is that they're more expensive. And as you know, here, DET is only $49, and PTE, if you need it to maybe, if you are applying to other countries than US, that PTE is more common, then maybe PTE is an option for you as well. We are just putting it here just to let you know that you have options, okay? So this is the difference, and I'm gonna shift a bit of my screen here so I can see everything. Here you go. So DET, as I said, it's from Duolingo, and the website is englishtest.duolingo.com, and PTE is pearsonpte.com, okay? It's really straightforward. DET stands for Duolingo English Test, and PTE is basically Pearson English Language Test for academic, and that's why the dash A is there, okay? And DET is using US English because it's based in the United States. Basically, based on my research, they don't really mind on what kind of spelling that you use in the test, but because it's US made, it's kind of like neutral if you use US English as test taker as well. And for PTE, it does recognize and accepts US, UK, Australian, and Canadian spelling. But what they put in the website as a warning is that when you choose one type of spelling, you need to stay consistent. Just stay with that one, okay? And for DT, it's online, computer-based, so you can take it anytime. For PTs, it's computer-based, but the centers are limited to Jakarta, Pontianak, and Surabaya. And I didn't get to really dig into Pontianak and Surabaya, but if you're in Jakarta and you want to take it, it's from ialf.edu. It's really straightforward. If you go there or just Google it, you'll find it. The score, here's the difference. Okay, the score is the max points or score for DT is 160 and PT is 90 points. And the increments is also different. In DT is 5 points per so if you get correct answer for one question, it's going to be 5 points. Okay, and for PT is just 1 point. I've seen the DT test scores result. They call it the test result certificate, which is very unique. So you need to get used to their terms and not to confuse it. Okay, what is the certificate about? It's basically your test result report. They just call it certificate for DET. Okay, and the certificate include not only like the point score of the whether you got 80, 90, or 120 or 160, but they also include the sub-score. So it's about the comprehension, the conversation, and literacy and production, because they believe your English proficiency is not limited to the number, but it's also in the application itself, in the practice. So that's what they put in your report or your test result certificate. And if you want to understand more about the sub-score, which is very interesting, you can just easily Google it and go to their official website. They explain it really nicely, and I kind of agree with what they say. Okay. And for PDE, not only the number score as well, they also include communicative and enabling skills score. So communicative score is basically they break down the section, and grade how many points you got in each of the sections. Okay, in each of the section that is below there, like what I put in there, it's speaking, writing, reading, and listening. So all of the standard English standardized tests will have these same sections. Okay, reading, listening, speaking, and writing. That's all four, and it will be always like that for English standardized tests, at least for now, up to now. Okay. And for the PTE, they just merged the speaking and writing because they find it's how they want to measure the task takers' skills. So they also include enabling skills, which is very interesting. Okay, you can also see the sample of the score reports on their website. I cannot include it here because it's very big. So yeah, go ahead and explore that if this is an option for you. And for DET, it's reading, listening, speaking, and writing. And the speaking is kind of pre-recorded. It's very similar to TOEFL iBT. So the test result certificate for DET is within 2 days. It's really fast. And you may retake up to 2 times within 30-day period after you receive your certified, after the test date of your certified test. So the tricky part of DET, because it's online and computer based, and you can take it anytime, basically because the proctor is just watching you from remotely from the screen, is that sometimes your test will not be certified, in a sense that it's invalid because maybe your environment or anything happened to the test that they see it as invalid, so you will have to retake it. I had students who took twice the DET because one of the tests is not certified because of like some disruption of the background noise or whatever. So she had to retake it. Okay, and that's not only for DET. I think that's everything for online tests. If you're talking about standardized tests, but you take it online instead of going to the center. Okay, and for PDEA. Most score reports are available after 2 days that you take the test, but it can stretch up to 5 days. And on the website, they mention if you haven't received it after 5 days, then you need to contact them or do something about it. Okay. And there's no limit in retaking the test. Only rule is that you need to have the report of your previous test out. So if you haven't received your previous report, which is max of 5 days, common cases, you need to wait until you have the report first and then buy or schedule another test for PTEA. Okay, I hope that explains this too. This is not really a comparison. It's just like briefing you guys on, the similarities and differences. Right. And this is the score conversion for DET and PTE-A to the most common ones, which is TOEFL IBT and IELTS. So you can see here, if you score 90 in DET, it will only be 62, around 62 to 67 in TOEFL IBT, which is not really recommended if you want to go to the United States. Okay. Our target is going to be around, I would say, 105 or 110 DET score at least if you want to go to US. And if you are aiming for majors or programs that really need good English proficiency, then you want to aim higher, like 115 or until 125 here. So you want to aim based on your program and kind of like see the profile of students who got accepted in your program, see how much they kind of score and how much they ask for. Because for TOEFL, IBT, IELTS, and English proficiency tests, U.S. universities are very favorable on a minimum of 72 or 80 or 92 score for TOEFL IBT. So they're really specific in that. And IELTS of 7.5, no lower than 7.0 in each of the section score. So they're very specific. You want to check on that. Okay. And this is where you can basically find what I find, because I just take some parts of this from the englishtest.duolingo.com/scores. You can go there to see the complete one. Okay. I just cropped this up. So DET and to IELTS, you can see here it's about if you get 55 until 60 between these DET points, you will only get 4 points in IELTS. So what you want to aim for is basically 115 until 120 to make it kind of like the same conversion to 7 point in IELTS. Okay, and let's move to PTE-A to IELTS and TOEFL IBT. So you can see here for PTE, the max score is 90. So if you got 86, you will basically kind of like have the perfect score for IELTS. And the same for TOEFL IBT, but it's 84 for the score of PTE to be converted to full grade of TOEFL IBT. So again, your target will be, if it's PTE, it's going to be 65 until 73 if you're going to convert it to IELTS, or for TOEFL IBT it's around here 50 above. Okay, so why I include this is because sometimes you already take DT, but you wonder how much it is if it's in TOEFL IBT. Maybe that's the information that you need to ask the admission office. Like, let's say, hey, I took a DET test or PTE-A test already, and my score is this much, but I see you only include TOEFL IBT or IELTS, and this is how much the conversion or the comparison score. Will it be possible for me to submit my DET or PTE-A instead, because it is equivalent to this much of the TOEFL and IELTS that you asked for? But of course, you need to kind of like pass what they ask for the TOEFL IBT and the IELTS in order for you to kind of like ask that question. Okay? All right, let's move to TOEFL IBT and the IELTS academic. What are the differences? So these are the key differences from the the creator and the website. TOEFL IBT, you go to ETS. IELTS, you go to BritishCouncilFoundation.id. The ownership is for TOEFL, it's from just ETS, Educational Testing Service. And IELTS is kind of like joined by British Council, IDP, IELTS Australia, Cambridge Assessment English. And they use different English spelling. So for TOEFL IBT, it's going to be US English, and then the IELTS is going to be the UK one. I also give you example there, just one example, because you can basically find out more example later on. Okay. For IBT, it stands for Internet-Based test, so it's 100% online, even though you are in the center when you are taking the test. And there is a home edition that I will update you later on, but that's in another slide, okay? So for IELTS, it's paper or computer based. It's listening, reading, and writing is going to be in. So they give option on that. You can still take the paper test, but most of them are in computer based these days for listening, reading, and writing. So it's going to be on the computer. You're going to type it. You're going to read the passages, everything on the computer screen in the center. But the speaking is always in person. So if you look at the last row, I put in sections there and make a highlight of the difference there. Okay. And in score wise, TOEFL iBT max point is 120. It's 1 point increment, and there's no half point. So you will not see TOEFL iBT score that is 80.5. So there's no half points at all. And there is MyBest score option that I will also explain later on because I think it's quite important. And for IELTS academic, the max score is 9 points and half point available. So 7.5 is very, very common. If you browse through US universities, they will ask for minimum of 7.5 IELTS. So that's why it's like that, because there's half point available. And there's also sectional score that most universities or a lot of universities actually mention that and no lower than certain point in each of the reading, listening, speaking, and writing section. Okay, so that's that. The main difference here is in the speaking. So if you prefer to speak in person with a native English speaker, then I will kind of like tell you to explore IELTS first, just because the speaking is in person. And for TOEFL iBT, it's going to be pre-recorded. It's going to be with a microphone, and you are going to talk to in front of the computer screen. Okay. So this is the update of the TOEFL iBT that I mentioned. So since August 1st, 2019, they kind of like shortened the test from 3.5 hours to 3 hours. They basically just reduce the speaking to 4 tasks from 6 tasks. And then the questions in the reading from 12 under 14 and to 10 questions only. And they limit the listening to a maximum of 4 lectures instead of 6. And the writing have no changes at all. So I cannot say the test is easier, but it's definitely shorter. So it's probably more efficient for test taker. And the way you study it, if you study by doing practice tests, the whole practice test, which going to take 3 hours as well, because even though it's practice, you are going to go through the whole test as a practice. Okay. So this is the home edition, and I did my research on this. It's just basically you can now take TOEFL iBT from home, from your own home with your own laptop or your PC. Basically, there are a set of requirements that you have to follow, like your software, your computer, your microphone. You need some tools that you can check all on ets.org. And the report will be about 6 to 10 days of business days. And for the report, like the printed version that you will send to the US universities, you will also take about 1 to 2 weeks. And because of the pandemic, sometimes it can stretch up to 2 weeks or even more. So this is why it's important for Vina and I to do this kind of presentation for all of you, because what you need to know is that it will take some time for this, test result, official one from the ETS to the university that you're applying to. So you don't want to send this on the date of your deadline to the university, because it will arrive late. Okay, so that's why it's important. So TOEFL Home Edition is basically you just need to control the environment. So it's kind of like very similar to DET in a way. The proctor is online. It's a real human, but they are watching you taking the test from like a camera on your laptop, from your webcam, okay? They call it Proctor U. So it takes some time to set up, and you need to know everything is same, okay? So I'm going to give you the brief here. It's offered anywhere around the world as long as TOEFL iBT is available in that country. So in Indonesia, it is available. Its content is identical, the format and on-screen experience same as the test center. The only difference is you don't have to go to the test center, and you're using your own tools and computer and everything. Okay. It's taken with your own computer, like I said, and monitored by human proctor online through Proctor U. You will learn more about the Proctor U when you are signing up for this thing. And it's available 24 hours a day, 4 days a week, with appointments as early as 24 hours after you register. So after you register, you can, choose the test time or date after the 24 hours that you purchase it. Okay. And this is my best score. I'm going to go real quick here. My best score is basically choosing the best score that you have from all of your TOEFL IBT before. So in the last 2 years, okay? It is the combination of an applicant's best score for each test section from all of their valid TOEFL score in the last 2 years. So the example is here. If this is 2021, so you can choose up to 2019's test date that you choose the best from each of the section of reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So if you have a test on October 19, 2019, and your score is 83 out of 120, and your reading is 22, for listening as well as 22, speaking 21, and writing 18, then you take it. You can choose a best, and you have other TOEFL score, of course, that you can choose from. And then if you use my best score, you will be able to choose the best listening score, which is 23, and then the best writing score, which is 20. So it will increase your score to be 86 out of 120. But not all university will accept not all universities will accept my best score for your TOEFL IBT. Okay, so please check with the institution directly to confirm their acceptance on my best score. Some universities may accept it, but not specifically mention it on their website. So if you go to the requirements, like I said, they will be quite specific on English standardized tests, on how many points you need to score for the TOEFL IBT or IELTS. And if they mention my best score there, then that's great. So they can accept my best score for your TOEFL IBT. But if they don't, you need to contact them to ask, just to make sure. Okay? All right, so this is a score conversion because a lot of people will want to know this. So I think it's quite important to include as well. So if you have a TOEFL score between 102 until 109, it will convert to 7.5 in IELTS. This is for the overall, okay, not for the section. So as you see there, down there, there's a section score comparison table. So I just, I don't have space to include this here, but you can look at the complete table and conversion or comparison per section as well on the ets.org website as the source cited here. Okay, so I hope that helps for you to tell with to ask the admission office if you have any questions regarding that. So what are the differences between GRE and GMAT? Okay. So as you can see, GRE and GMAT kind of have a different target audience or market, I would say. GMAT is for people aiming for business, and GRE is for people who aim for other programs. But like I said, a lot of business schools these days also accept GRE. So they will put GMAT or GRE. And the difference with TOEFL IBT or IELTS here for the requirements that you will see in the website, on US University website, is that they won't tell you like how much score you need for the GMAT or the GRE. Okay. And I think we can talk about that later on why. Okay. So GMAT will give you the test structure here is quite similar, but the only difference here is the analytical writing ability. So GRE don't have that, but GMAT have it. And the verbal section, so that's an additional section, and it's only applicable in GRE. I know it says experimental section here, but it's basically not graded, but I want everyone here to also do their best in that part, because that's basically still part of the test, okay? And you will not, and as far as I know, you can't even tell which one that will be experimental if they did not mention it, okay? So that's why you need to be, doing your best from the beginning until the end of the test, without thinking, oh, this is not graded. I just, put in whatever here, okay? And the scoring system here is a bit different. For GMAT, it's from 200 until 800, 10-point increment. And for GRE, it's 260 until 340. It's 1-point increment. And the score is between 0 until 60 for each of the section. So 130 until 170 for the GRE. And I don't want you to go to, too much dive too deep on, the scoring system, just because I think the preparation itself and knowing the purpose of each of these tests is more important. In duration, GMAT is about 3 hours and GRE is almost 4 hours. And then you cannot skip any questions in GMAT, but you can skip questions in GRE. So the price is, GMAT is more expensive, 250 versus 205. And for quant, we do have comparatively difficult quant here compared to the GRE, which have an easier quant section. Okay, the emphasis on their verbal section is for GMAT, it's going to be grammar, and GRE is going to be vocab. So that's why a lot of our advisee have a lot of problem with GRE in the verbal section because of the vocabulary. It's just something that we never use on daily basis. Okay, so this is the summary. Basically, this is the sample questions for the quant section. So as you can see, the left side is GRE and the right is GMAT. The challenging one for GMAT is the data sufficiency. And they have two types of questions, problem solving and data sufficiency. And for the tips, you need to learn not to use calculator and practice the basic maths on a daily basis so that you are used to it. For GRE, they have 4 types of questions and easier quant in overall, but four different types of questions: multiple choice, multiple answer, numeric entry, and quantitative comparison. For GRE, you can use calculator, but of course, if you are more savvy in basic arithmetic, you probably kind of don't really need too much calculator as well. So you can use the free practice test that comes with the purchase, so that you know which one you will need calculator on and which one you don't. It will save you a lot of time in that part. And what's a good score for each of this? Okay, for GRE and for both GRE and GMAT, you want to aim for the 90th percentile. For GRE, that's going to be 327 point, and for GMAT, that's going to be 700 point. So as you can see, it's almost the perfect score. Not really almost perfect, but as you can see, 327 out of 340. So that's our recommended if you want to go to US University, especially those highly selective schools, okay? And this is the example of data sufficiency test or questions in GMAT. I just want to summarize this real quick, that all of the choice A, B, C, D, and E here will always be the same. What's going to be different is on top of that, on top of this statement, which is the 1 and 2 here, that's going to change, okay? The statement going to change, and A, B, C, D, E, the options here will not change at all. So you will only need to remember that A is going to be, you're only going to choose one. Statement 1 is sufficient, and B is statement 2. C is both, and D is each of them will be sufficient, and E is both are not sufficient. So if you kind of like know A, B, C, D, E is a constant, you will not waste your time to read them again. Okay, it saves you a lot of time as well. And I will not go through this question very detailed because we have limited time. Okay, so when can you retake? For TOEFL iBT, there's no limit, but no more than once in a 3-day period, and also apply for the special home edition. So if you already have a test appointment, you cannot register for another test date that is within 3 days of your existing appointment. So let's say I have appointment today for 19. I can buy another test, but not. But it has to be after the 21st of March, if that makes sense. Okay, so 3 days is the key here. After 3 days. Okay, for IELTS, there is no restriction as well on how many times you can retake them, but your score is unlikely to increase unless you make significant effort to improve your English before retaking. And this is from their website. Okay, this is what they write. If you are finding like information on retaking the test, this is what they wrote. So you need to study really, really well to increase your IELTS score if you're retaking. So you can visit the preparation section to take a practice test and assess your level first before maybe if you're retaking it. So have you improved or not? Okay. And GRE, you can only take the test once every 21 days up to 5 times a year. It applies even if you cancel the score on the test taken previously. You may take the paper delivered test as often as it is offered, but I think these days we are only using the computer delivered one. Okay. For GMAT, it's once every 16 calendar days. It's effective since July 19, 2015. I think a lot of people have challenged, to retake that. That's why they just make it in shorter span of time. And no more than 5 times in a rolling 12-month period. So I think this is the same with GRE, no more than 5 times in a year. And no more than 8 times in total of your lifetime. So they make another limit. As per 2016, you cannot take more than 8 times of GMAT in total, okay? Regardless of that's last year or 2 years ago, okay? And reschedule or cancellation. For TOEFL iBT, you can reschedule or cancel it up to 4 days before the test date. And to reschedule, there is a fee of $60 that you have to pay before you can register for another date. Last year they do waive the reschedule fee because of the pandemic, but I think it's back again because they already make the home edition. But yeah, you need to check again with this directly to ets.org with for the most updated one, or if they make another regulation because of the pandemic. And then for cancellation not received at least 4 days in advance, you will not be refunded. Your test fee will not be refunded half of the original fee. Okay. So if you set for cancellation before 4 days, so let's say 1 week before the test date that I bought, you will get refund of 50%. Okay, the test center staff cannot make schedule changes. So what you need to do is, if you register through ets.org, is that you also log into your account there to make the changes to reschedule or cancel it. Okay. And this is for the GRE. You can cancel and reschedule no later than 4 days before, the same. And then the fee is $50. They also did waive this last year because of the pandemic, but I think it's all back again or not. But yeah, do check again. And then for cancellation, if your request is not received at least 4 days in advance, you will not be refunded. But if it's longer than 4 days, you will also get half of the original fee. Okay, so this is for the percentage of refund that you will receive based on the timeline of your cancellation or reschedule request. For IELTS 5 weeks before, you will get 75% back, and less than 5 weeks, you will only get 25, you will be charged 25% of administration, but there is no refund except that you have really, really exceptional circumstances that they have stated on the website. Okay. Less than 3 days, you cannot get any refund or reschedule at all. It will just be void, or maybe you cannot come to the test and that's it. There's nothing you can do about it. Okay, for GMAT, if you reschedule or cancel before 60 days, you will will be charged with a fee of $50, and cancellation will receive $100 refund. So as you can see here, 15 until 60 days, and then 14 days. The the closer you are to the test date will be charged more. So if it's 2 weeks before your test date, you will pay 150 just to reschedule. Okay. So I don't recommend this, and this is why I put it here. You need to know that there is a fee if you want to reschedule, and there will be like charges that will not come back at all, will not be refunded to you at all. Within 24 hours before appointment, you cannot, your entire exam will be forfeited. So it's the same, you will just kind of like let it go, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, so I'm done with my part, and I will invite Fina back here. I will try to give the remote to Fina. Okay. Hi, Fina. Can you use it?
Yes, Santika. Cool. I can see it. All right. But I think if it's easier, can you just stop sharing it so that I can just like share it from my laptop?
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
Oops.
Okay. Hi. All right. So Santika, basically, it's been so much fun in the chat room. I haven't done this for a while because I'm always like, the person who's doing the presentation, and you're the one who's basically, be very active in chat. And then now I get to do that, and it's like so much fun. And there are some part of your presentation where you are, like giving a really good information, and then I told people like, hey, this is like a really good information. And so I'm going to give you, I'm going to do my presentation, guys, by the way. And it's going to kind of like real quick, not as technical as Santika's presentation. And Santika is great for like making that presentation slides. I believe she actually knows more than I do. And it comes to like the test. There are like some technical questions, Santika, in the chat, like, is there any like is the question format is in multiple choice? And I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, I don't actually know the answer. And then I said, I think Santika will know.
Right. I'll go through it.
Yeah, so I'm going to give my part of the presentation, guys. So basically to just almost like wrap things up. But okay, let's see. Let's kind of like, okay, so what Santika has been sharing with you guys, with us tonight, is basically the very technical aspect of all these standardized tests, like where you can, apply and register and everything. And then the score conversion. I love those parts, but then the one that I'm going to share with you is mostly, kind of like the most frequently asked questions, as in, we get a lot of questions from you guys asking, what is like actually the good score? Like what is the score that I need to aim? But let's start kind of like, let's be on the same page with all these requirements, right? So we got TOEFL or IELTS, which is the standardized test, and we got the college transcript, we got the resume or CV, we got letters of recommendation. So basically, resume and letters of recommendation is also part of our monthly events, by the way, and we're going to have that next month. And then number 5 is we got GRE and GMAT. So number 1 and 5 are basically the one that we're covering tonight. And then we got the statement of purpose that I had last night. So as you can see here, all of the requirements, an exception of college transcript, because I don't know like what to give a presentation on that, is very like straightforward. But basically, as you can see, all of this, the majority of this requirements, we got that cover during our events here in America, right? So, sorry. And so, but I would like to kind of, Santika mentioned this in the beginning, but I really want to put this in your mind right now, the fact that English proficiency is very important. We got a lot of people, not necessarily get this question a lot, but I just want to really, there are sometimes people ask, so wait, is it TOEFL first or is it the GRE first? But I feel like we can't actually really move on to the next part if we don't actually have a good proficiency. Because if you think about it, right, like the GRE, the GMAT, the SAT, and the ACT, when you are about to take the test, it's everything in English, right? So if we don't actually have like a good English proficiency to begin with, it's going to be very challenging to actually move on to the other aspect of the application process, right? So these are some of the questions that I would like you to be able to answer, right? Can you do well in a program conducted entirely in English? Because, well, obviously we're going to study in the US, right? Everything is going to be in English no matter what. Can you do well in that in that program? All of the everything is conducted in English. And then because graduate programs, especially, I know some of you guys are watching sessions are still in high school, but this is also applicable for you guys, by the way. But graduate programs require a substantial amount of reading, writing, and speaking. All right, listening, well, obviously as well, but I don't really see that being too much of a problem because I'm pretty sure you guys are our listening should be kind of like good or okay, right? But reading, writing, and speaking are definitely very, very important. I remember like back in the days, like TOEFL didn't have speaking part, but then I forgot what year, but they started to actually put speaking part in their task because probably at the time they started to realize there are more and more international students studying in the US, but they actually have a hard time speaking because similar to here in Indonesia, we have like an English course since what SD, right? But then like we probably have a better grammar than even like than the local Americans. But the problem with us, I feel like here is that because we rarely use English when on a daily basis, so it's kind of like challenging for some of us to actually be able to speak English, and it's actually quite crucial when it comes to studying in the U.S. And then Santika also mentioned about this, but I want to, for you to actually, this is kind of like the starting point if you want to study in the US. So let's say you are here watching the session, want to study for 2022, right? This is kind of like the very like basic step that you need to have, that you can tell yourself right now that, okay, I am going to aim for at least 90 because technically, not all of the programs will ask you for 90. The general score is 79, actually, 7980. But if you want to study master's in the US, if you want to study bachelor's degree, 79 is still possible. But if you want to aim for a more highly selective university in the US, such as, like the Ivy League or like the UC schools, oftentimes they are going to actually ask for a higher English score. But for master's degree, especially if you want to do LLM, we got someone here joining our session, wants to study LLM, and he basically shared that, yeah, they don't actually ask for GRE or GMAT, but the requirement for the English test is actually quite high. And exactly, that's the beauty of like applying for an LLM. There is no standardized test, but the English has to be quite high. And we're talking about like actually above 100. I got advisees shared with me that the requirements for the LLM program that they want to go to in the US actually reach to like 110. And remember, the full score is 120. So that's like a really high score of an English. But for other programs, I would say if you can aim for 90, if you can actually aim for hit 100, you are pretty much like good to go. Or you're talking about 7.5 on the IELTS, okay? So now, preparing for a GRE or GMAT test, Santika, we got some questions from people. A number of people actually asked this same question, like, so how do I prepare the GRE or GMAT? What kind of sources? So we got some of questions, other than that, we get questions like, how long should I prepare before the test because I'm busy, right? I also have like a job, but then at the same time, I also want to start my application, but then I don't know like how long should I start the GRE or GMAT preparation first on top of everything else, like essay or resume, or how does that work, right? And how do I prepare? Do I learn just by the book? Do I join a prep course? Is it like a prep course in person, or is it like an online course? How do I do that, right? And of course, the most favorite questions that everyone always wondered: what is a good GRE or what is a good GMAT score? Because a lot of us are basically frustrated because we couldn't find that. A lot of programs actually don't mention that on their website. And what is up for that? Like what is up with them not mentioning the score, right? What is the minimum or like the cutoff GRE or GMAT score? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Hopefully I can do it like real quick so that we can kind of like have, like more discussion. So some graduate schools, yes, they may not specify any minimum or average GRE or GMAT score requirements. The reason is because the keyword here is holistic. So if you were here yesterday when I covered statement of purpose, or maybe you've been attending some of our events, you probably kind of remember when I said over and over again this word of holistic. I think we can say that is like what makes the US is really different, because again, holistic means that the way they review our application is not solely looking at your academic performance or looking at some specific documents like maybe like the GRE or GMAT scores, right? But they're doing it holistically. It means that all of the documents that they ask, remember that 5 list, is it 5 or 6? The one that I just showed, that I shared, like the transcript, the resume and all of that, they ask all that, but then they are actually going to weigh everything equally. Okay, but now the fact that they don't actually mention that on their website, it means that you will have to set the target scores. If you really want to know the exact scores that you really want to aim, you need to do kind of like a little bit of more research on that, because of course every program is different in terms of the GRE or GMAT scores that they're looking for. And I'm going to show you some kind of like an example. But yeah, you basically have to kind of like go dig into their website. Most often they have what they call the student profile. It means that they kind of like just put it on the website, kind of the average GRE or GMAT scores of applicants that they accepted from the previous year or from the previous academic year. And so basically they just kind of like take the average score and then they put it on the website. And then of course, every year is going to be different depending on the applicants, right? The applicant score. Or other ways that you can find that out is by actually ask them, like emailing them, right? Probably they got that question a lot. And so I don't know if they may or may not answer your question, but it doesn't hurt to actually try and email them. Or another good way is to actually contact current students or even like alumni. But then again, every academic year it can be different. But then just to kind of like get a better idea of like, the average score that you can aim. But if you can, something I believe also covered this on the percentile. I put this slide on based on my experience. Pretty much like being in EducationUSA at America and meet with a lot of advisees for the past few years. And this is basically what I pretty much like see on the ground, like the real, like what is really going on here, at least here in Indonesia, right? But if you can aim for 165 and above on the GRE quant, is it high? Well, it is pretty high because it's like the total score is 170. Why so high? Why do I put like 165 here? It's because we can already assume us as an Indonesian, we are going to find the GRE verbal very, very challenging. So we can't actually say GRE verbal is, even if you have, let's say, 110 or even like 100 on your TOEFL, there are still a lot of people out there that find the GRE verbal is just like very, very hard. GRE verbal is basically like the English section of the test. And then on the GRE essay, if you can aim for 4, then that would be great. So these are basically kind of like the high standard of the GRE. Don't worry if, let's say, you end up with 160-ish, less than 165 on the GRE quant. But if you can actually hit 160 and above on the GRE quant, and so if you can put it like right now on your plan that, okay, 160 is kind of like the minimum score that I need to aim, then that would be great. And for the GRE verbal, please, if you can, don't go below 150. Right? So if you can get 150-ish, 150 and up, then you're good to go. On the GRE essay is getting more tricky because I see a lot of people actually get 3, but if you can actually get 4, that would be wonderful. On the GMAT, it really depends on the schools, right? So if you're aiming for I hate to say like the top, I just hate using the word top, but let's say, like the top 10 of the business, like the MBA program, let's say, if you can actually aim for, if you can aim for 700 and above, that would be quite ideal, because for the MBA program, I would say, yes, they are still kind of like heavy looking at your GMAT, right? So as we can see here, different programs kind of like see GMAT or GRE kind of like differently. But especially for MBA, they kind of like somewhat still pay attention on the GMAT. Not always though, but for if you want to study MBA, you kind of like want to really pay attention more on the standardized test. But let's say you want to study psychology or like education or some programs that is actually not really heavy on the quant, but then yet they're still asking for a GRE, then I still want you to definitely like do some preparation, but then you don't have to like really like kill yourself as in like, oh my god, I need to get this course, you know what I mean? Because they are kind of like more friendly in a way. Like if you submit your GRE and the score is just like okay, they're still kind of like, they are still able to make some consideration. So this is like a good example. I took this from Harvard specifically because they have like this one, just like a list of different programs and the average of GRE. So as you can see here, so we're talking about Harvard. I mean, it's one of the Ivy Leagues. It's very like highly selective universities to get into. But then let's take a look at how each program, each department, each major is actually different. So Harvard Graduate School of Engineering, because obviously they are very heavy on the quant, they are actually asking for like quite high on the GRE quant scores, right? So we're talking about the 90th, 95, or 95th percentile. So it depends again on the number of people who are taking that test, that specific timeline. But then 90 and 95 percentiles, we're talking about, like I said, what I shared before, like about 165 and above. Right? But then the verbal score is actually kind of 80, 85th percentile is kind of like not that bad. But then let's take a look at Harvard Graduate School of Design for it's been a while, 2014 incoming class, but the GRE quant is actually only 157. Remember when I said that if you can hit 160 for the quant, that would be great. But then for some other programs like here, the good example, Graduate School of Design, they are okay with 157. They are okay with the GRE verbal scores of 158, right? And then similar to the Graduate School of Education, the quant scores is actually lower, way lower than the GRE verbal. And it makes sense because, well, you're studying Graduate School of Education, assuming that they are actually not that heavy on the quants, but then they are definitely heavy on, I don't know, maybe you need to conduct a lot of writing or reading. So that's why they need you to kind of like do better on the verbal. This is like under the same university, which is Harvard University, but as you can see here, it's actually different for depending on the department or the program, right? So some graduate programs have total cutoff scores or / we call it minimum scores, but we don't actually can call it minimum because then again it depends on the percentiles, right? Some don't and only interested in the verbal or the quants, like I just showed you. So again, it really depends on like each program. So that's why we have to, it would be really nice if you can actually, create like an Excel sheet and then you can put all of this information, depending on the programs, right? But most programs look at GRE scores as only one element of your application package. Remember when I said holistic earlier, because the other documents, the other applicants, they are definitely going to ask you for a letter of recommendation, your undergraduate transcript, and GPA, and your statement of purpose. So basically, the what I want to say is, yes, like a lot of us frustrated. We find it really frustrating the fact that they are asking GRE and GMAT, but then again, what I always tell my advisors is definitely do your best, but don't really don't go hard on yourself too much if you don't actually get the scores that you want. Okay, so when a graduate schools look at your application, they are looking at a wide variety of factors. Again, the keyword here is basically holistic, but I just lay it out, the full explanation here, that tell them whether or not you may be a successful student in their programs. The GRE scores that you submit are merely one of these factors. Let me say it again. The GRE scores that you're going to submit are merely one of these factors. Don't think that if you don't get a perfect score on GRE, you won't be able to get in. All right. In fact, the one that I like, it's very hard for me to forget is, this one student that we invited a few months ago, and he got accepted to Cornell MBA with, I would say that's with quite a low GMAT score, but then he got it. And I'm pretty sure that has something to do with, can be like his essay or his letters of recommendation or maybe his resume, right? So it doesn't mean that if you have like a low GMAT score or a low GRE score or just an okay scores on those tests, you won't be able to get in, okay? I also got someone recently got into Zoom and she shared that she got accepted to MIT, right? And then I asked her questions like, what is, the score that you got for GRE? And she said, it's just an okay score, but she's still getting into MIT, right? So this kind of scores do not answer the question, what is a good GRE score, but they will let you know the lowest possible score that the program will accept. But wait, having an excellent GRE or GMAT score is no guarantee that you will be admitted to a particular program. And a good example is there's this one of the advisors of mine last year, where he actually shared with me that he got a full score on the GRE quant, full score of on the GRE quant, 170 out of 170, and he didn't get it. He didn't get accepted, right? So why? We don't know. It can be like some of the reasons. Maybe his essay is not that strong, or maybe his resume or his letter of recommendation is not that strong. So it's not a guarantee. So again, what I'm trying to say here is basically when it comes to the standardized test, which all of us probably not really love, what you can do is do your best, right? Again, the keyword here is holistic. So, Fina, can I actually apply to US universities without the GRE or GMAT? It's definitely possible. In fact, it's perfectly normal if you prefer to apply for some programs that do not need the GRE or GMAT. And what is interesting, I know the pandemic is, very unfortunate to happen, but because of the pandemic, we actually see a lot of, and I actually talked to you guys in the chat, right, before when Santika was giving a presentation. Now that we have the pandemic, actually now more and more universities actually start waiving this test. I don't actually really see this being the case. Well, I mean, not all of the programs, right? Not all of the programs. I see that for MBA program, for example, they are, I think they're still asked for a GMAT. I forgot, but I think they're still asked for a GMAT. But there are actually a lot of other programs that actually they waive the GRE. Actually, in fact, before the pandemic hits, we actually see some kind of like a trend from a number of universities in the US where they actually start waiving this standardized test, meaning that they actually no longer ask this test, or maybe they just put it some kind of like an optional on their website, which actually we actually got this question as well. What is it optional? And then I'm going to answer that in a minute. But and then the timeline, and then what happens, and we get the pandemic, and then we actually see more and more universities actually not asking for this GRE. And then when we see that being the case, I can't stop. I get more chance to get accepted. Hold on, it means that you need to produce like a really great essays. Okay. Let's see what do I have here. And then more business schools actually offer flexibility to let applicants submit the GRE instead of the GMAT. And then I think someone asked a question about, is it true that if you want to study a business school, it's actually better if you take GMAT other than GRE? And then, well, the way I look at it, if they say on their website that you can actually choose between GRE and GMAT, I would say then that means they actually don't really care which task that you take. It doesn't, like, I don't really see why we should think that, oh no, even though they put GMAT and GRE to choose, it doesn't mean that they still favor GMAT over GRE. I would say whichever task that you find more comfortable in taking, right? And it seems like the majority of people find GRE, I don't want to say easier, but still better than GMAT. But then I actually also have someone who is like very very business type of person, and then he actually shared with me one time where he said that he actually found that GMAT is easier for him than the GRE. right? So again, something that I would like to share, which I think not a lot of us aware of this, is the fact that the US grad schools or departments are very decentralized. So even though you're applying for one program, let's say MPA, right, or public policy or international affairs or on those fields, right? Same programs, but then different universities, then they basically, again, like they have like different requirements for sure. But then even though it's under like one university, like I shared with you the Harvard case, you can see that how decentralized they are because it's still Harvard, but then each department they have like their own requirements. So we need to pay attention on that. On we need to rely on individual programs that we're going to apply, making sure that oh, okay, so this universities they put the cutoff or the minimum score, like the average score of this, but then this other university they didn't put it. So maybe you can kind of like maybe ask them or maybe ask alumni or something like that. So yeah, making a list on like an Excel sheet or something that would be really helpful. All right. So basically that's it. I mean, the next slide was kind of like the key takeaways, and then I want to kind of like come back to discussing all of this standardized task realm with you guys. But some of the key takeaways from this event tonight is, well, I would like to start early. I mean, I didn't really talk about it, but start early. Ideally, begin 2 years before the program starts. I have this exact bulleted statement last night on my essay session. So if you are here for 2022, which is start in August 2022, we can already assume that the program will have their deadline as early as September of 2021, September of this year, especially like MBA, for example. If you're aiming for the first round, their earliest deadline would be sometimes like in September, October, right? That's like for a program that is not starting a year from this year. And then from that deadline, you want to take kind of like a year before that to basically start all the preparation. So those combined, it's equal to 2 years, right? So and then the beginning of my slide, I said that English proficiency is very important. So basically, if like aim for 90 to 100, I would say if you still don't have 90 or you can't like at the moment it's not 90, I would say maybe kind of like take a step back a little bit, maybe adding like 6 months or maybe like a year to kind of like focus on this first, right? Before we move on to the next step. Because after English proficiency, we are going to get into like an English territory, right? Everything is going to be in English. Like your resume has to be in English, your essay has to be in English, and then of course the GRE or GMAT has to be in English, right? If the school requires a GRE test, aim for a high score on the quant section, because I believe that at least here in Indonesia, we are doing so much better on the quant than the verbal. Okay, if the school requires the GMAT test, if you can aim a minimum of 650, but if you can get into 700, that will be really ideal, right? And then the next one is you have tried your best on the GRE or GMAT test, but your scores are still below the cutoff score requirement. Don't go too hard on yourself, as in I'm not going to apply anymore because my scores is too high. But let's move on, because here the keyword is holistic. It means that, okay, let's admit that our GRE or our GMAT is not that good, but then let's focus on the other documents. Let's make the essay such a stellar essay so that we can balance it with your GRE or the GMAT score. Okay, build the strongest overall application possible. So some tips that we like to give is, by contacting the professor, because then when you are in correspondence with them, we can actually put it in the essay, and then that's going to give an extra point on your essay. Okay. Yeah, working on the admission essay, because that's basically what Santika and I are here for. We can't actually really do much, like as in assisting you on the GRE or GMAT, because that will be the part where you have to be the one who's doing the preparation. But we are here in guiding you if you have like some questions, like the questions that we have tonight, like the sources and everything, right? And remember again here the keyword is holistic. Okay, let's see what do I have here. Okay, but I would like to talk a little bit about, because we got a couple of questions tonight asking about, so where do we get the resource? Where we got the resource? The way I look at it, there are so many ways that you can do that. Either self-study, because that's also something that we see a lot of our advisors in the past did, because we are busy, you guys are busy, and by self-study using books, it's something that you can hold yourself accountable, so you can kind of make your own schedule, right? But if you're the type of person that, yeah, I can make my own schedule, but I tend to, violate that agreement with myself. So then maybe you can kind of like, join the preparation. It can be online or in person. So online, like I shared, there are actually a number of resources. So Santika shared, we can actually go to ETS or you can go to MBA. We see a lot of people shared with us. You can use sources, online sources like Magoosh, and there's so many more online. But then there are actually also like some kind of preparation in person in Jakarta alone. So they actually it really depends on the kind of a learner are you. Are you the one that can learn on your own, or you prefer to actually be in a class, or you prefer to just kind of like you're loving the digital, the online course and everything like that, right? So, but then again, at the end of the day, we want to kind of like share with you that we are here. Santika and I are here for you, and we love our job so much. So we want you to be successful. And so, yeah, that's why we have this session tonight. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to come back looking at some of the questions. So how are we doing so far, Santika? So like I said, my presentation is quite brief, but the bigger chunk of the presentation is being done by Santika.
Yeah, I just covered the technical, and I think it has to be balanced with your presentation. That's why it's going to be very fun to do this again in the future, with your tips and kind of like holistic approach in this standardized testing. Because a lot of, I think, generally Indonesians think if you don't reach a certain score, then you're doomed. Then you are 100% will be rejected by the admission office. But and as you have shared, and I shared as well, that the highlight here is English proficiency test is kind of like more strict. If they say you need this number of score for TOEFL or IELTS, then that's it. You need to reach that. Yeah. So that's that. That's really good point. And I have been catching up in the chat box because I see that you had so much fun in the chat box, and it's a lot to catch up. But I did it, I think. So yeah, we still have new questions coming in, and so I think it will be nice if we can take those questions. And I see that okay. Um, so I've seen a few questions that's similar, kind of like how I practice the TOEFL and practice a lot and still not ready to take the real test. Some of our participants tonight, and I shared that because there's this one question that I think is very subjective, that we don't have the answer, don't have the fixed answer, is how long does it take for us to kind of like increase our TOEFL or IELTS score? Let's say my target is 100 point and I'm currently at 80. Like, how long does it take me to increase that 20 points, right? It sounds really simple, the question, but we don't have the fixed answer because each person have different learning ability and speed and English proficiency ability that sometimes you cannot force it. But what we can do best is practice more. And for me, what really helps is the tips and tricks when I was studying my TOEFL iBT back then. So my trial TOEFL was, if I'm not mistaken, I remember it was around 70. And then I studied intensively in a way that I went to, a class, like a semi-private class. That's because it's how I learn best in that kind of environment. So different people will have different style of learning, different preference if they, only able to learn best by themselves, then there's no point for you going to classes. Um, and if you can learn best from books, then you don't need kind of like what online resources. So those kind of things, we have so many factors in that. So you don't want to kind of like, stick with just one thing. Um, and you need to try out different things to see if it works best for you or not. Not because, okay, my friend only study from book, terus dapat nilainya 100 misalnya. And then, okay, I'm just going to do the same thing. But when you do the same thing as your friend, you are not getting the same score. So that's probably why you're not getting the same score. Okay, because you're targeting differently.
Yeah, and then Santika, like we also hear a lot from people. They say, "Oh, I prefer TOEFL over IELTS," or "Oh, because my friend said that TOEFL is easier," or some other friend said that IELTS is easier, so that's you prefer to do IELTS. Don't listen to the like anyone said that. Even when I say that, like maybe I can say, "Oh, I prefer TOEFL because it's easier," but different person is different when it comes to like this kind of English, right? So it's always like come back to you. And so when it comes to so here like Faisal basically shared that my senior took the IBT with just 3 days preparation, and then the senior still got like 100 plus on the TOEFL. But then yes, I mean I would say that there are people who didn't probably even do any kind of preparation. So it's actually come back to where are you in your English right now? As we are speaking tonight with you guys, ask yourself, where are you in your English, regardless technical or not, but how comfortable are you in your English, right? How is your speaking? Ask yourself that. How is your writing? How is your reading? How is your listening, right? And then after that, you can kind of like take like some mock tasks to just kind of like find out. It's unnecessary, by the way, to actually to take the real task just to find out where you are, because then again, that's like, waste of money. But there are resources out there, right, Santika? Like in TOEFL, you have the, what is it, the TPO, the task practice online, that you can purchase, so that, and there are, some other free resources out there that you can actually take just to kind of like see where you are in your English, and then use that as a mark and then the benchmark, and then start from there.
Right. For the TPO, TOEFL iBT, and that's a practice test online. Yeah, test practice online. Those terms, but it's called TPO. If you Google it, it will just pop up. But that you will have to pay, even though it's not the full price of the real test, which is not $205, but you still got to pay some amount of money. It's not free. They do have the free one, but I cannot include it in the PPT. I mean, if I include the link, it's just pointless, right? But I can share it in the chat box in Zoom if you are in Zoom. And if you're not in Zoom and you cannot find it after you did your own research, then by all means, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help with that. So TOEFL IBT, IELTS, GRE, GMAT, there are plenty of resources out there online, and free, I call it free practice tests as well. And each of them are available on their official website. So that's a good start. If you go to each of the website to kind of like explore, not to buy the real test. That's what I mean by, explore it first before you decide to, okay, I think this is the best for me and this is what I need, and dive deeper, like study more, practice more on that one. Okay.
It's really funny. Jimmy Kennedy said in chat, GMAT question example looks so scary.
So scary. Exactly. Yeah, I'm also scared by the own example that I put there.
Oh, really? Because,
yeah. It's quite intimidating, and that's why I said knowing the tips and tricks really helps. So the most scary quant part for GMAT is the selection, that statement question. And if you simplify it by knowing, okay, A, B, C, D, and E, these options will not change, then you will kind of like feel, okay, it's not that hard. You just need to focus on statement 1 and 2. And that from that part, then okay, I need to practice this so that I get used to it and whatever. So yeah, I think you need to study kind of like the practice test. The more you practice, the better, because that's the key with standardized tests, ya, Vin, ya. The more practice and tips and tricks, the more familiar you are with the types of question, then you have higher chance to score better than your previous test. Gitu. And we do have advisee. I think I remember Sahril, Vina, if you remember, he shared he took IELTS once, terus nggak tahu nilainya berapa, terus kayaknya he just feel like, okay, I want to retake it. Who knows, the score will be better, and then he retake it again, and the score increased, and he did study for it to increase the score, but it's mentioned in the British Council Foundation website that statistically probably a lot of people do not really increase their score from one to another test unless you really make effort in that.
Yeah.
So it's possible.
Thank you for raising that, Santika. So just to add to that, so this is like a really good tips that I'm about to share with you guys who are watching the session. So speaking of like retaking the task, because I mean I get a number or two advisees that have even like retake the task like 4 times. Can you believe it? 4 times. But then I would say, I'm just giving you kind of like a heads up right now that it's actually really unnecessary. But I mean, if you want to take that many, then by all means, please do that. But I just want to say that what I actually see on the ground, again, because like Santika and I think the reasons why I love this job, right? It's not like every time we share something, it's based on what we are actually really see, because we work with you guys like together, like, and you guys actually share a lot of information that is actually very valuable. And what I actually see so far, seeing a number of advisees who have retaken their the GRE, not so much the GMAT, but yeah, we do actually have someone take, like retake the GMAT a couple of times. But when they actually retake the GRE, it's actually really tricky because the scores is actually not that significant. So it can, so let's say you have, let's say you have 163 on the GRE quant, but then you have like 156 on the GRE verbal. Let's see if I can remember what I'm saying. But then let's say you kind of like unsatisfied with your GRE verbal, right? And then you kind of like, okay, I want to retake the test so that I can get a better GRE verbal, right? And then what actually happens when you retake the test is that because you focus so much on improving your GRE verbal, then yes, your GRE verbal will go up. But then what I actually see, which I think is really interesting, is that oftentimes your GRE quant will go down. And so when you submit it, then which one are you going to do? Do you prefer the higher score on the GRE quant, or, lower on the GRE quant, which is, although you have like a better GRE verbal. So that's like actually what I see oftentimes when people retake the test. And this is not just like one person. I don't know, I think I would say about like 10, 20 people already come up to me and they said, I retake the test, and this is what happened, And so I made my own conclusion that, yes, retaking the test twice is okay, but then I can already guess that that's going to happen, to the point where I got my recent advisees telling me that they are going to retake the test, and then I give them a heads up, almost kind of like, do you want to bet, and see what happens, and then it's been proven. They took the test for the second time, and then they get back to me and they said, Fina, you are right. So whatever that is, it can be that the person wants to improve the GRE quant, but then when they did that, they did improve the GRE quant, but then the GRE verbal is actually going lower. But then what is not good about it is the GRE quants only go up like 1 or 2 points, which is actually not that big of a deal. It's not like that significant. So yeah.
All right. Thank you, Fina, for sharing. So should we go to the Q&A section?
Yeah, but before I forgot, we got someone who attended our session yesterday from Instagram, Novika Maharani. Remember when she asked about the LSAT, but then said, hey, come back to our event tonight. So we're not focusing on the LSAT tonight because, I would love to have the session, but it's just that it's very like a um, too specific of a program, but I will be very happy to actually talk a little bit about LSAT. We actually, in fact, have someone in the Zoom here that is actually, want to study LLM as well. But wait, hold on. I need to come back to actually to her question yesterday. What was the question? Do you remember her question? Santika?
I I do remember someone asking about LSAT, but I need to dig that.
Okay. So let's,
So I will get back to you on that in
okay,
a minute.
perfect. Okay, perfect. Oops, I actually unhide the question list. So Santika, if you can help me
Yep,
with
I
that
did.
problem. But okay, all right. So let's see some of the other question. I think we got some good questions
Right.
earlier.
So, Pina, I got
Yeah,
the question, but this
yeah.
one is from someone in Instagram as well last
Mhm,
night.
mhm,
So the question was, I heard that there are some type of LSAT. Is that
mhm.
true? Is there any different purpose for each type of LSAT? Is that a must for us who wants to pursue master degree in a law field?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about law program. But I think you will find it more informative if you can watch the sessions that we had last month when we invite Zaskia Putri, one
Mhm.
of the alumni who had an LLM degree from University of Washington, and then now she's basically work as a lawyer in the state of Washington. But basically, what so if you want to do master in law, or they don't really call it master in law, so I can assume that what you want to do is actually LLM. So LLM is a program where you can only take if you have a bachelor's degree in law. So S1 hukum, right? What is interesting is that in the US, there is no bachelor's degree in law, right? There is no bachelor's degree in law. So their first degree of law is after you take a 4-year bachelor's degree in some other program, or sometimes they call it pre-law. But then basically you can actually learn some other programs like psychology or some other programs in general. And then if you want to aim for a law degree, if you are an American, then you're going to take a JD. But I know it's a bit confusing, but for us in Indonesia, since we have a bachelor's degree in law, which I assume these questions are coming from someone who has a bachelor's degree in law. So then when you want to kind of like go up and study law in the US, then it will called LLM. And so when you want to take LLM, you don't have to take LSAT. LSAT is only for those who are planning to do JD. And JD is, again, is a program when you didn't have a bachelor's degree in law. I know the whole thing is like confusing, and I don't know like what is like the easiest way to explain this. But I hope you get what I'm saying here. And yeah, I think it's something if you can actually dig into. I think her name is Nofi something in Instagram. Um, um, I think that's kind of like her question. She asked about LSAT. But yeah, hopefully this answers. If not, we are sorry. Please email us. I'll be very happy to, get the answer right for you.
Yeah.
So,
Shout out to at C Novika
yeah.
Maharani.
Yeah.
There you go for your LSAT question.
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you, Fina, for trying to answer that. So if you get confused, you can always rewatch this and all of our past events in YouTube. As you know, as long as we started last year for all of our online events, you
Mhm.
can try to dig. Those session with Zaskia is also available on our YouTube slash youtube.com/at America double A on in the back.
Mhm.
But if you cannot find it, email us and I'll be happy to share. Okay? Because you're not in Zoom. Otherwise, I'll give the link. But yeah. Okay. So another question. I think this is for me. So I'm just going to read that. Hi, Santika. I'd like to know, does the master degree in science also require GRE? So whether or not it's required or not, it will be depending on um, the department and the university. So even if we are talking about same university but different department, it can have a slightly different or like additional requirements. Some department will ask for GRE, some maybe not. So you need to check on that from the university website directly. Okay. And if they do, then you know what to do because you need to catch up to their deadline. Okay.
But if I may add to that,
Yeah.
I mean, because we don't know what science you're talking about, but then I would guess that if it's science, then most likely that yes, they will ask for a GRE. And reason is because that would be the way for the university to actually check your quant section. And that's why if you want to do like a hardcore science, you definitely want to actually do really well in the GRE quant or just like the math section in general. And the good news is I don't actually really find that as a problem for some of my advisees who wants to do hardcore science because you already have like a good, strong quant to begin with. But it will kind of like probably like a problem for some people who, let's say, I want to study like public policy, but the university still asks for a GRE, and then you have to deal with the GRE quant. And so in that case, because especially if the public policy that you want to do is actually not that heavy on quant, you can kind of like make your own assumption where, yeah, I don't have to really worry about like the GRE, the quant part, but then you want to do better on the verbal part. So.
All right. I think we have a few similar theme question here, like how long usually takes to prepare to TOEFL iBT. Again, very different people will have different needs. To be safe, what do you recommend, Vina? I will always go for half year before your actual deadline. That's like the the max you can delay it.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you haven't know what the TOEFL iBT or the IELTS is, what does it look like? You're totally kind of like almost zero knowledge on that. The latest that you need to start to catch up to the standardized test, both TOEFL iBT or GRE or IELTS or GMAT is 6 months before your deadline. That's like
I would definitely agree with you. And actually we see people actually do the essay and the GRE or GMAT somewhat together. I mean, if you can actually do that, that's fine on top of you juggling with work. But then if you kind of like want to separate that, that's where the 1 year lays, right? So maybe you can do 6 months, like really focus on the GRE or the GMAT, and then the last 6 months on essay or vice versa. So now if you are here for 2022 and then you actually have the first deadline in September or October, then this is like actually the perfect time for you to actually start. The 6 months timeline that Santika just said starts now, right? So we've been saying this since January. Every single year, every time when it hits January, I always tell people apply now, apply now, apply now. And some people I know it sounds like crazy because like why would I want to do it like now? We are still like very early in the game. But then this is it because if they ask for a GRE and then you need some extra time to practice. So essay and the GRE are kind of like somewhat the two requirements that a lot of people find that you need extra time on working on that.
Right. And we also receive kind of like similar questions on, do you have any referral, where to learn TOEFL or GMAT, and then, how to learn all of these things. But I think you covered this, right, in your PPT, Tina, in your part. So another thing that we want you to know is that we don't, Education USA don't do referral like, you can go to institution A or B to or C to take this extra lesson with a hefty price tag and whatever. And and we want to emphasize here that different people have different needs. Try the online from the official website first for the free trial, free resources first. And if you already know, okay, I need TOEFL iBT and not IELTS, not other English standardized tests, then that's when you invest more if you need any extra lesson or whatever, okay? But that you will have to find yourself because we don't do referral. And speaking of prep course, I think you mentioned this, Yafina, in the chat box, that hopefully we will have prep course in the future, but we don't know
Yeah.
when yet.
Yeah.
But we did have the past one, the TOEFL IBT and the GRE, each of them 12 session. So if you want to rewatch it, I have compiled the video links. If you guys want it, you guys can email me. If you don't know my email, I will put it in the Zoom chat box if you're in Zoom. But if you're not, it's salim@educationusa.org, double S in front. So you can just email me to request that GRE prep course or TOEFL IBT prep course. But it's 12 session each and 1 hour each of that. So kind of like 12 hours. If you're ready, come and have it because it's free. But if not, then you need more time to explore. All right? So that's it from me, Fina. I think our time is running out, and we
Do you
still
have some
have
other
questions.
question?
I think we do from Naomi. Not sure if you have covered it.
Oh yeah.
Naomi Prakash.
Hi Kevin. I'm looking for opportunities to take my master's degree in technology management in Colombia, and the program mentioned the GRE or GMAT is optional. What is your takes or suggestion on that? Yeah, and it's actually a really good question. I told her that, let me discuss that during the Q&A, because I think there are actually a number of universities out there that are currently put their GRE or GMAT as optional. So different person or different advisor may answer it differently. Maybe if you ask Santika maybe can see personally that for her, I don't know, Santika, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe if it's optional, then take it. And I know there are a lot of people out there that basically agree on that. Like if it's optional, just take it, right? But for me, I am more like a practical type of person. So when I actually see optional, I would put it aside. I would put it aside, and I would kind of like come back to it when I have everything else done. So for example, like I still have like 3-4 months before the deadline, and then I basically have like my essays ready, my resume and all that, like letters of recommendation. I already find the referees and stuff like that. And then I have like 3-4 months to basically do nothing before the deadline. And then I would kind of like, what? Yeah, I think I can, I would like to prepare for the GRE or GMAT, right? But then I also completely agree with someone who thinks that if it's optional, then why not? Just take it, right? But then I would also like to recommend that, so because there are actually some kind of like an optional essay as well. And then a lot of people, but I knew I want to do the optional one. But then I said, no, we want to focus on the main essay first. When we are done and we still have like some kind of like extra time before the deadline, then yes, we want to kind of like take a look at the optional. So that's kind of like my answer on that. I don't know, Santika, if you want to add something to it.
What I want to add is yes, like what Fina said, different advisor will advise you different things, and that's why probably maybe not going to different or many advisors or friends for tips is helpful because you're not going to get confused, right? But for me, I always go for depends on where you are in your preparation. If you are really early and I see that you have the capability to like financial wise and time wise and academic wise, that you have no problem in taking GMAT or GRE and you still have plenty of time, and I'm like, okay, go take it. If it's optional, then take it and submit it to add some additional value to your application, even though it's optional. But it's nice to put a bit of extra effort if you can, right? But if not, if you're like very close into the deadline and you have limited funding or like budget for your application because you apply to maybe many universities, you want to save up money and it's optional, or you're looking for university that's optional. So the point is you don't want to take the GRE or GMAT, right? So what's the point of me telling you to take that if that's your target? So I'm really case by case type of person as well. But yeah, most of the time, if it's optional and you have a lot of things to deal with which is what most of our advisees are doing, because most of them are applying for master and already working, already have family, juggling so many things. So if it's optional, makes their life easier, then why not just skip it? But if you want the extra mile, please go for it. That's all. And especially for, sorry, Fina, a little bit more on that. If you're reapplying, I think if you're reapplying, And if the first time you fail and you didn't submit the GRE or GMAT in the optional part, and maybe when you reapply, you maybe want to consider to submit that, even though it's optional, just to show them, look, this is my effort. Yeah, that's
yeah.
all.
Yes. Wow. Time flies.
Really.
It's been fun. I told Santika earlier that hey, I think I think this is gonna be fun. This is like our first time kind of like doing presentation together. I think I would love to do it again. Once in a while, kind of like touch base with you guys on your GRE or GMAT. And don't forget, like once in a while, we have just kind of like a session where we basically just like talk. It's kind of like I sometimes I call it differently. I like to kind of like change with the title, play around with the title. We call it AMA, ask me anything in the past, or chat with an advisor. So basically, if I have the option, I prefer to just kind of like do this, like without presentation slide. But sometimes it's almost impossible to do that. That's why we still have to do some kind of like a presentation slide. But it's actually so much fun when we got to actually really interact with you guys, and looking at some of these great questions. And so basically, what we want you to do after this is, if you find that has been helpful, we are here for you guys. And especially the fact that this is the last event for the month of March. It means that on Thursday, Friday evening, I will be available for an amazing session. So please come to Zoom if you prefer the evening shift. But then we also definitely have Santika, who is doing the afternoon shift. So Santika starts from 1 until 5 p.m. and I'm doing the rest from 5 until 9 p.m. All right. So if you have any questions or you already start your essay draft, please come to Zoom and let's continue the chat one-on-one. All right. Thank you guys so much. Santika, thank you so much.
Thank you, Fina.
Thank you. And thank you guys for attending the session. Look forward to having you guys again in the future. And again, look forward to having you actually in Zoom. Thank you for EduAmerica team. And I would like to give you back to James. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you so much to Kak Fina and Kak Santika for such an informative session. Earlier in the event, we asked our audience members a question. That question is, what does TOEFL stand for? The correct answer is option D, Test of English as a Foreign Language. Congratulations goes to Andi Takdir from Facebook for answering correctly. And thank you to everyone who has participated. Don't forget to tune in next time for another chance to get a shout out from us. I'd also like to remind all our audience members of our giveaways, the 10 tablets for the 10 lucky people. If you're interested in becoming one of those 10, visit our link at bit.ly/WHMinspired to learn more information. Now, you may be wondering, how could I develop an awesome idea for a place like this? It's actually very easy. All you need to do is go to our website at www.atamerica.or.id, select Create a Program, and click Collaborate with us. All event proposals coming to us will be reviewed, and your event might be featured here soon. You can also subscribe to our newsletter for all our weekly updates. That wraps this episode. It's been fun, but we have to say goodbye for now. Follow our Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at @ATAmerica for all our fun contents, event updates, and so much more. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. My name is James, and I'll see you at the next EduAmerica TV episode. Goodbye.